And 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
That was Saucy.
Here's the hat.
That was Saucy Santana, who we saw this past weekend.
We did. You should make a remix to that.
I will. I don't know how. That's why I'm learning. You do?
I actually, yes.
Then do it for me.
I could. You want me to, the DJ stuff's downstairs.
I need to fix it. I need to do it myself. Otherwise, this hat means nothing.
These hats!
DJ Chris.
Who is my dad.
Yeah.
Huge ally. Thank you, DJ Chris.
Thank you.
So he made DJ Carrington, a hat. And I got Marissa because I am a Marissa.
You're boring. Because you don't have a label because you're boring.
I know how to remix the Sad Cat song.
I thought you were going to say, I know how to read.
That too. Huge shout out to DJ Chris.
Yes.
Or I guess, thank you. Also, look.
Yeah.
The Good Fruit Pod hat. We love. So thank you. He just did this out of the kindness of his heart.
I know. It was really cool. And the apple, it's like really, really well done.
I don't know where he popped out with it.
Yeah.
But like he just one day was like, took a picture and sent us a hat. Actually, on our way to a very fun event.
Yeah. Marissa likes to abuse authorities. Abuse the authorities.
I accidentally called the police at
money.
Work. I didn't call them. I just didn't appropriately tell them that we didn't have an emergency.
Oh.
And
I have a question. Did you realize you were calling 911 and then hang up?
No. So okay.
Or did it just?
Okay. Look, you guys want the story?
I do.
Okay. So today, I had 3 policemen show up to my place of work, because I messed up. So clickbait, not clickbait. Okay. So we have an alarm system that you like have to lock up like you do with like food stuff.
Yeah.
We're getting our alarm system fixed, and the guy who was working on it must have triggered the alarm.
Oh.
So I work at the desk where I handle the main phone, and so I get a call. I answer, hello, and they were like, "Hi, we're from something security. We got a trigger for an armed robbery."
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like,
there's a gun?
Yeah, mind you, okay, so as part of the HR office admin department, my job was to make a new sign for above the alarms just in case you trigger it, because everyone has their own code to like get in and out. So I was literally making the sign. I had the old sign on my table and the new sign that I was making on my computer. And we had been trained to like say a certain code or whatever to get into the office. And I don't know what happened, but the minute I heard police and armed robbery, because they were like, "We're sending the police down right now."
Oh.
And I was like, huh. And then like, I don't know what happened, but I just like I don't.
Wait. You have to finish it before I ask questions, because I'm so confused. It triggered and you heard the police are coming, there's an armed robbery, and then you did nothing?
Yeah, well, I knew what was happening because I was like, no. Like, our office is fine. Like, we're safe. And I was like, no, we have one of your representatives working on the alarm system right now. Yeah. And he probably triggered it.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's here right now. And they were like, do you have your company passcode to indicate it's a false alarm?
Yeah.
And I was like,
yes.
And that's when I was like, because we've been told to say this one thing, but versus this other thing. And I was like getting mixed up in the directions that I was literally putting on this new sign. And I said the thing that I was not supposed to say. And the guy was like not confirming anything. And he just was like, which, like, granted, he's doing the right thing, because if I was a robber and was like, I work here, like, I get it.
What's your password? 4.
One of your guys here. That's a smart excuse.
True.
Anyway, don't get in it.
You told me that earlier that the police came, and I was just like, oh, true, like that's happened to me where I've called the police and then they haven't come, but they've just been like, it just was an accident. This was like not even 100% your fault.
Yeah.
I thought it was more like you kind of messed up. It wasn't really you messing up.
I know. Well, okay. So the thing about it is, okay. So I give them the wrong code. Everyone's looking at me because I gave them the wrong code, and they were like, "Riz, you were making the sign," and I was like,
Well.
"It's different when I'm in the moment." And also, I was like, "This wasn't. We were taking that part of the procedure off, and so it was like." As HR fixing the procedure, updating it, I was like taking that section off, so I didn't think that was still part of the procedure, and so that's why I was getting the new procedure and the old procedure mixed. So low-key was a good thing because now I can inform the rest of the employees at the workplace that this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I just happen to have to lead by example. So, so the guy's like, okay, and I tell him the wrong code, so I'm like there, and I'm like, and the guy's like, is that your final answer?
I know, no dealing you.
I know, and I was like, yes. And he was like, what's your name? And I was like, Marissa.
You forgot.
I threw up.
What was that sound? I just throwing up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, and then so I was like, and he was like, all right, bye.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I just was like, so then I go back to the guy who's working on our security codes because I'm like, this guy needs to telephone somebody like right now at his company. So I go back. He's literally like on the door working on like whatever sensor cameras there. And I was like, hey, and he's like, huh? He's on the ladder, and I was like, do you by chance like have you maybe triggered an alarm or like could you what you're doing like possibly cause that?
Yeah.
Because our workplace has been open for a couple hours now, and like no one's touching anything except for you.
Yeah.
So it's you, but like I'm asking you out.
Yeah, you have to be polite, like roundabout. Yeah. About it.
So I was like, is there somebody? And I told him, I was like, I just got a call and the police are on their way. So can you like call somebody?
Yeah.
Or like, and he was like, and the whole time I'm explaining, this guy's like,
what the hell?
Yeah, like he's like making faces at me, like
Why?
Like for I don't know, and I was like the fault's on me, like you're in trouble, like that
what
kind of like,
heck?
and I was like, I'm gonna push you up this ladder right now because I was just like, mind you, we work in a lab with concrete, so if I pushed him over, it's boom. Anyway, so
into a cement.
Yes. Into a wheelbarrow of cement cylinders.
Dude, he got tarred and feathered. You throw him into a tar pit, a cement pit, and he's like, could you imagine getting covered in wet cement? I feel like you would really like not survive.
Well, I guess that they used it as a form of punishment back in the day, torture.
God, getting tarred and feathered is maybe one of my worst nightmares.
I cannot believe people were so barbaric.
Yeah, people were evil.
Talk about that later.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm like, this is a great intro.
What about like drawn and quartered? You ever been drawn and quartered?
What?
Drawn and quartered, where each limb got tied to a horse, and then the horses would run, and then your arms and legs pop off.
Why do you know the name of that?
Because I
don't need to explain.
Because I have a couple horses.
I had someone tell me that they were the cult the other day.
Who?
Anyway, there's a lot going on. So
I know a couple people in the cult. Me. I was waiting for you to catch on.
This is going to be an easy episode, by the way. It is going to be educational. But just a heads up, it's going to be a little bit of an easier episode because we want to ease into our next chapter or segment of what we're going to be doing on the pod. So we'll give you a heads up on that. Let me finish this really quick.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it. The end.
The end. Okay, so that was the episode. It was really easy, like you said it would be. We just wanted to give you an update about Marissa's concrete and police problem. And then that was it.
Cult.
Yeah, and the cult that I'm in, which happened 40 years ago. So that's it. Bye.
Okay. So the guy is like kind of brushing me off. I go back and I find our like head of the office or building. And I was like, hi, I just got a call from the security. The police are coming. What should I do? And she was like, and I told her the situation with like the code, and
Yeah.
I didn't know which one to give. Blah, 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 blah. And she was like, nah, don't worry about it.
Oh.
Later on, I learned that she has been held at gunpoint like 3 different times. No, robbed 3 different times, held at gunpoint, I think twice out of those 3.
What?
So this seems like nothing to her.
Yeah, fair.
So
fair.
when she told me like that, don't worry about it. I was like tripping, but she was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I go back to the desk and I just go and sit at my desk.
And you have to just wait for the next bad thing to happen.
Yes, and I was like, well, maybe I did give them the right code. Maybe the
True, because he said, okay, bye.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, because he was like, is that your final answer? Doesn't mean it's wrong. So I was like,
God,
slay.
true, he didn't.
Well, then my boss comes walking down the hall, and he's like laughing, whatever. But he was like, hey, to my boss.
Yeah.
Her office is right next to my office.
Mhm.
He was like, did you call the police? You going off and calling the police? And my boss is like, what? And I just am sitting and I just like go, that was me. And
From down the hall.
yes,
Next door.
no, for real. And they were like, oh,
What
and they
the
thought it was so funny.
heck?
So my boss comes over.
You told them that you called the police. They shouldn't be shocked.
Well, I didn't tell everyone yet.
Oh.
It was literally in a matter of 5 minutes. This is all. And so I'm like the boss comes over and he's like, what happened? I kind of explain it. My boss comes over. I have to explain it to her. And it was just this whole thing. And then my boss goes, they're going to be so mad at us. This is the 3rd time we've called the police over this month. Yes, because I guess our alarm system has been tripping. And like, we just haven't been able to get it right.
That guy was there trying to fix it.
Yeah, so we were like, but she was like, this
Damn.
is the 3rd time. So then all of a sudden, like, more people are kind of coming over by my office because, like, my boss is extremely loud.
They're yelling about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so they're like, whoa, and then my guys are like, no one go outside. Like, one of the other employees is like, no one go outside because you can see them. They were parked outside, and because they think it's armed robbery.
Yeah.
And so they were out there, and he was like, my coworker was like, I'm gonna go out there and pretend like I'm robbing the police.
No!
Yeah, and I was like, dude.
What
But I was like, we are at this point, like, police are watching our
They're
doors.
swatting you guys.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
I was like, and even the head boss was like, yeah, they think someone's held at gunpoint right now. And I was like,
yeah, they probably do.
yeah, so I just had to sit at my desk. Everyone's sitting there like, Ruth, and then my boss is like, what did you do? And I was like, I gave him the wrong code. I gave him the wrong and she was like, what? And I was like, and I have the signs right here. And my CEO was like, you what? And looks over at my computer at my desk, and I have both signs on how to do the procedure. Bam, bam,
Dang,
like
dang.
literally.
You might be dyslexic because really all you had to do was read a couple.
I
numbers.
know.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
No, it's okay. It was kind of funny because then they ended up coming in. It was this whole thing. I got to chat with the lady on the dispatch.
Yeah.
The little like call center or whatever.
Yeah.
She was so slay. Her and I were like chuckling and giggling.
She needs to do her job, and you're out here.
Well, she had to wait on the phone with me to make sure I wasn't getting like shot.
I guess.
So she was like, I was telling her all about the workplace. She told me all about like, this happens all the time.
Yeah,
she
I
was
bet it
so
does,
nice.
actually.
I was like, what's your name, girl? You want to hang out?
Where are you right now?
Yeah, I was like, and then the police came, and there's 3 of them. And they had to walk around, and one of them, I guess, was there previously and had talked with my boss and like anyway.
What a crazy situation.
And then my CEO boss at the end of the day walked out, and he was like, all right, see you tomorrow or whatever. And he was like, don't go calling the police.
Bro.
I was like, I'm gonna quit right now.
You don't know it yet, but I'm ready to pull the
I've
trigger.
already been trying to
I'm about to actually rob you. For
yeah.
real. You're gonna actually need the police in a minute.
No, we don't have any money there.
Yeah, if there were like robbers there, they would just be trying to haul cinder
No,
blocks
for real.
away.
You guys don't have anything or a nuke cage.
A what cage?
I probably should not say that. We have very dangerous chemicals at our.
Did you say nuke?
Yeah. We work with like nuclear gauges that like literally shoot through like I don't know how many feet of like cement and tar and ground to like
Dang.
yeah. So
You could blow up something.
and we have the acid that like breaks down bones and bodies that people use when you like kill someone.
Give me some of that. Let me see. Can I hang around and mess with it?
I'm like, go ahead.
I would love to like put some stuff in there.
Our company's so chill.
I could probably rob it and no one would come.
You know, you're gonna get cement.
Well, no, I'm going there for the chemical.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, you know, so I can't say half the stuff. As much as I bag on this place of work, they're actually a really great place of work. They have helped me.
They were really. I was gonna say not a lot of. I feel like there aren't many places that would be like, "Oh, you called the police." Oh,
no,
like, it's okay.
For real. And
then
guys,
having it disrupt everyone's day.
And this is not the only time I've like screwed up.
That's not. You can't put that on yourself. Though.
But some of it's in my control.
But like people screw up all the time. It's okay.
I don't mean to be a bad person. I'm not being.
Happens.
Yeah, I just am messy.
You're just a little forgetful, and that's okay.
I like don't get hired again. People are like, "Hey, I listen to your pod," and you're literally calling yourself a bad employee.
Your interviewer's like, "So let me pull up this video for you real quick." And it's you saying,
"I suck at calling the police."
Talking about how easy it would be to rob your place of work,
but there's no money, and talking about finances.
I keep getting caught in this. Oh well. The homos keep trying to trap me.
Speaking of homos, guess where we went?
Oh my god, we were gonna say this like 20 minutes ago.
Yep.
Yeah, we went to Pride.
We did. Phoenix Pride.
We went to Phoenix Pride, which we've never been to, believe it or not.
And this was actually my first Pride ever.
Marissa's first Pride ever.
Which I've been gay for a minute.
Yeah,
like you have. Openly gay, sorry.
I know. Well, yeah. How was it? What did you think?
It was all right.
What were you expecting? I
think I was expecting more of the parade.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of really just felt like we were at a nightclub the whole time. Which it was like fun. I'm glad like it was really nice outside. Like the temperature was really nice. Mm-hmm. That's probably why they do it not in June in Phoenix, which I'm like, thank God. But it was really nice. You could like dance and be sweaty and then walk and be like, I'm cold. This is great.
I think I was looking just for oh my gosh! My Adderall's ready!
You manifested it!
God is good. Wow.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm happy for myself. Thank you. Yeah. God is good.
Maybe you won't mess up at work anymore if you have Adderall.
I will.
You can't hold yourself to that standard of not
my poor boss. I love my millennial boss. I will say it till the day I die. That lady is so nice.
You should have DJ Chris make a hat that says, "I love my millennial boss." I don't know. I feel like the vibes are off today.
I'm just talking about work.
Well, it's not that. It's just like...
No, it is.
Like our vibe is off today or something. Maybe it's me. Maybe
you had a cold brew. Carrington had a cold brew.
I had a cold brew. I haven't had coffee in a long time. Maybe that's it.
Me drinking a Celsius
but
right now.
Like, yeah, I had a Celsius when we went to Pride. Like, it's not the lack of caffeine because I have a caffeine addiction. Hey, but like, I don't think it's that. I think, and it's not like my sleep. I don't know what it is.
Maybe it's the lighting.
It could be. We got a new light bulb.
Oh my gosh, guys, I have to show you something.
You guys. You're gonna love this light bulb.
Okay, guys, I know.
Okay,
HR.
This is actually the coolest thing ever. I wish we were sponsored by these people because these light bulbs are lit as hell.
I feel the rush, addicted to your touch. Oh, I feel the rush. It's so good. It's so good. It smells like papas, and I can smell the papas from up here. Oh. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I feel the rush. Or what's the other one? Gold teeth, rockstar, Lisa, La Lisa, can you teach me Japanese? I said, hype, that's my life, I'm a rockstar. I'm a rockstar, baby, I'm a rockstar. If you aren't watching...
If some of you are truly just on Spotify listening to this, you're so confused. We have new lights in the studio that are voice activated, so the lights are going crazy right now. And we're having a great time.
This is party. This is dynamic.
Ooh.
This is calm.
And if also some of you don't know, I have a light sensitivity, so this is crazy. I'm having a good time though. Now it's back to what is this name? Is this the name?
No, this is just this.
This is just purple. Purple.
Well, technically, it looks pink to them.
Oh, true. There was a color though that was like fruity or something, and I was like, we should do fruity.
Is for fruit? The Good Fruit Pod?
The Good Fruit Pod. Hey, do you guys know where you are?
Yeah, surprise!
This is the Good Fruit Pod.
Yeah, and let's talk about it because that's our topic for today.
We've been meaning to do this for a good 40 minutes.
Yeah, we've been giggling.
We're having a good time out here.
I've been told that people love it.
Then good. Hi.
I've also been told we need to cut to the chase faster.
There's a 50-50 group out there.
Yeah, this is for everyone.
This is for everyone. For everyone.
Okay.
Just skip ahead.
Yeah, they're like boom, 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 and it's just us constant police. I feel it. Colts.
The skips that you get to each time.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
People. Okay. Well, welcome to the Good Fruit Pod. Yay. Okay. So today, mentioned a little earlier, that we are just going to have a recap day. We're going to be slowly kind of easing our way back into like the educational part of our podcast. We are going to be getting into some deeper topics, some more theological, some more subjective topics.
My favorite.
Yes. So because we're going to end up having to use our brains, why don't we warm them up a little?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing today. And essentially what that is going to look like is just a recap. So we're not only going to recap just the pod, but we're going to recap some of those like key ideas that we've gone over in the past couple episodes. We're going to recap the big four pretty heavily today.
They're rough, but they're important.
Yes.
They're big for a reason.
Yes. And yeah.
Heck yeah.
So
let's get into it.
Yeah. So Good Fruit Pod. Also, this is big for our new listeners.
Yes.
We do have new listeners. And
this is a good episode for new listeners.
Yeah, so this is a good start because
we went heavily into each one of these in the previous, before we took our break. Mm-hmm. So if you're really interested in what we have to say today, you should definitely go back and rewatch each of those episodes because Marissa does a good job explaining things.
Thank you.
So let's see if you can do it again today.
I will not.
Okay. It's just a recap, so it's fun.
Also, if you're someone that maybe couldn't listen to those past couple episodes because they were dealing with more like direct, heavier passages that were a bit more objective, then this is a good episode for you too to still get like the understanding. Or maybe if you were just like, Marissa, what the were you talking about the whole time? Then this is a great episode too because I am going to clarify some things that even I listened through the pod with you guys so that I can understand what the heck's going on. And there were times that I would listen and be like,
what? Yeah. What am I saying?
Yeah, and I was like, well, also fun, which maybe we'll talk about in the future. I don't know. I got a fun little review from a couple viewers, a couple listeners, and I realized that maybe my points weren't getting across as well as I thought they were. And these people, they're very educated. I highly respect their opinion. And they gave me some rebuttals that I realized that my initial approach to this argument was just not as well written as I wanted it. So, and then because of that, because of what their responses were, which essentially was they're non-affirming. They're still great, still a great response.
Welcome here.
Yes,
we appreciate even people with different viewpoints. I think it's great that you're listening to this and giving those rebuttals.
And honestly, I needed it because that the rebuttal
was really good.
Yes.
Did it absolutely destroy your foundation?
Yes, it did, and it made me look back at my resources, and I said, "Wait a minute, these aren't good."
Hey.
the resources I made, I was like, oh, no wonder they had so many questions because it was.
Hey.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, which it'll get published here hopefully soon, I actually revamped this part that I realized I needed to fix. I've written what was a 16-page paper. I want to say now it's 19, 20 pages.
Nice.
Of an argument for homosexuality, which essentially is everything that we're talking about on the pod. And it's just more quick and it's giving more references and yada yada. But essentially it's just a readable version. And I shared this version with these viewers of ours, and that's when they came back with the rebuttal. And that's the resource in which essentially is the foundation of this podcast, other than the Bible. And I reread that resource that I wrote, and yeah, it was bad. So
you know what? That's okay. I feel like that's neat. That needs to happen sometimes.
yes,
You know, I've been thinking about how kind of poorly I did on my episode. That I was like, I feel like I could have done a lot better. I could have taken more
on
time.
the science.
Yeah,
I thought it was great.
and I'm like, I'm this science girl. I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, I thought it was great.
Okay, I definitely thought something's wrong.
If you did anything smarter, I would have not understood.
Really? Okay, great.
I'm not a biologist.
Then I'm just gonna keep my delusions going in my head that I'm really smart.
Well, you know what? I actually talked when I got this review. It was pretty tough, and it rocked my foundation a little bit because they had some very good points. Which, granted, there's always going to be good points on the other side.
Yeah.
But it hurt at the time, and I talked to my mom about it, and because she was there when I got it, and I told her that, and I was like, Ma, like I went back and my argument was bad, and I was like, Mom, like, and I explained to her the situation, and she was like, well, as you're doing this, like, that's part of it, is you're also learning because you're doing more and more research before you go onto the pod other than what you've already done. And that just comes with learning, and that comes with being a human, and you're new to this process too. And she was like, so like you have to expect that you're not always going to be perfect, just because like you're a human as well, developing and learning with these people.
What a great response.
Yeah, I really,
that's like
I was gonna
the perfect.
be so sad.
You were gonna end it.
Yeah, I was gonna
end the podcast and a lot of other things.
Yeah, apparently we can't say that on
Unalive.
Yeah, that's why I didn't understand why people were doing that, and now I do.
You can't say end at all.
Well, I was just gonna straight up be like, I'm gonna, but then I did it. But yeah, so if you're feeling that way, just think about my mom.
Think about what your mom had to say.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something quite similar, but I think I should just leave it at what your mom said, because I think that was really well said. I was gonna say almost the exact same thing, but just slightly less well worded. Like, sometimes that needs to happen. It's kind of just it.
Also, that's also why we're like, go read a book, guys.
Yeah, actually, this podcast is just listen and then actually do everything else on your own.
Yeah, we'll just give you a thought. It's like a prompt.
With a thought. Yeah, honestly, that's
You're
what
welcome.
It should be.
Yes. Actually, that's a point in here. Okay, so now we can start going to the. You did.
I did read the notes.
That's on growth.
That's on growth.
Speaking of, we are just a prompt.
Yes.
I don't think I've actually ever disclosed this part.
Oh.
Which now that I don't know if it just like wasn't a time where I like really divulged in it, but I guess this is something new. Then we will learn. This podcast, we did disclose from the beginning that we will always give both sides, and we will always go into both perspectives. Obviously, we have a bias, and I believe that evidence supports that bias. So we're going to give that to you. But we also will talk about the other side and the validity of it. And this is the part that's new, is I do believe that the Bible speaks differently to each person, and that each person is meant to take the Bible in a certain way according to the path that God has outlined for them. So, with that being said, in the sense of us being a prompt, at the end of the day, we are just a resource to help you guys decide for yourselves. If you are someone who experiences homosexual feelings, it is your decision to say, do I want to do that? Is that within God's path for me to pursue that or not? Or if you're someone who doesn't, I guess you wouldn't really think about those things.
Yeah.
But like,
if you have people close to you,
yes,
you're thinking of it from you want to think of it from a different perspective.
Yes.
That's why you're here.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And like, the reason I say this, and I think also I was scared because it is somewhat of a touchy topic. Because you're right. I'm not telling everyone, oh, then if you're gay, then just go be gay. Yeah. I'm not telling you that, actually. I'm telling you, well, then one of the great things my mom has also told me.
She's making
good
points.
I know. One time I asked her, I was in a really bad spot when I was super young. And I mentioned this, but our audio didn't record the last time. Long story short, I was in a very bad spot when I was younger. I was very concerned with whether I was going to get into heaven or hell. And I asked my mom, do you think I'm going to go to heaven? Like, do you think Jesus will forgive me? And my mom, she did not say, yes, honey. My mom looked at me and said, well, that's between you and God.
Fair. Shattering to a child, but fair.
So, with that being said, you're right. That it kind of sucks because I think some people come here thinking that they're going to get the affirmation that they are looking for. Or
which they might. I feel like,
yeah, that's true. I'm very supportive of you being queer.
Yeah, but that's like, like you said, we have that bias. We're here for it, but also like, it's a prompt. It's truly, you got to make the decision for yourself. But there's not many resources. Maybe there are now, but there haven't always been many resources that are super affirming. So I feel like having this as an affirming resource is really good because there's not a whole lot.
Yes, that is true. Yes, but again, we're not here to tell you to act any certain way. Maybe, again, the controversial side is maybe you do need to be someone that just remains same-sex attracted. And I know it sucks, but I do think that there is a calling for that. And I know it's controversial. I know it's hard to hear, but like, some people go into celibacy because that's what God wanted them to do, like nuns. We don't shame them for doing that.
True.
Just because we're putting in a different context. It doesn't mean it's any worse or anything. It just kind of gets a bad rep considering where we're at within our time.
Yeah, that's fair. Because for a second there, I was kind of like,
I know, I saw your face. I was like, uh-oh.
Be same-sex attracted? But I guess it really does come down to if that's truly what God is telling you to do, then why on earth would I try to talk you out of that? That is the opposite of what this podcast should be doing for everyone.
And I think God illustrates that in the sense of, I forget the verse. I never know the verse of whatever I'm trying to do.
It's almost like you're faking knowing the Bible. There's something that you're not telling us, and it's that you're a big fat liar. You lie. You keep saying these things that are like somewhat off that I think you actually could be homophobic. I'm gonna buy you a wig.
I just haven't gotten my Adderall, okay?
When Marissa doesn't get her Adderall, she's homophobic.
Like, I'm a liar.
The millennial, like, don't talk to me if I haven't had my coffee. Don't talk to me if you're gay and I haven't had my Adderall. Because I will hate crime.
I will call you a slur.
I will hit you with my car and not feel bad about it. Dude.
Okay, so sorry.
We needed that. It was getting too serious.
Yeah, sorry. All right.
No, but it needs to be said.
Yes. So at the end of the day, we're not here to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
It is for yourself. So that also goes back to read a book for yourself. Sorry. That's also why we're going to tell you that, is because it really is. We are just someone to prompt. We're here as a resource, an affirming resource. But you got to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's just the hard part.
Yeah.
You got to,
Yeah.
You got to grind.
It's rough work. I feel like, and like coming to terms with it, like that journey for me was a long one. So
for me too.
Know. For most people, I feel like even like straight people go through like that journey of like I feel like that never really actually ends. I don't know. I'm not talking about sexuality specifically, but like the journey of like you with God and like you with other things going on in your life, that usually doesn't end.
Mhm.
So I don't know why we have to. Sometimes I'm like, why do we have to disclose that? It should be just common knowledge that like, yeah, you shouldn't listen to anyone 100% and just totally take their word for it. That I don't know if that made sense.
No,
No, it didn't.
it did. No. Next point.
Keep it.
Anyway, but that's something new. I don't think, as I'm listening through, I'm like, I've never disclosed that.
It's which is funny because I feel like there hasn't. I mean, maybe with the review, but I'm like, I feel like it doesn't need to be said. But maybe it does need to be said.
Yeah.
I don't think about it, but I also don't listen to our podcast. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Don't. God sees. God sees.
I
that.
have before.
You have?
Yes. I listened to the first episode that we did coming back, and I laughed.
You did?
I told you.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. Don't act so surprised.
Sorry.
I like. It's hard to listen to myself back, and I've said that before. I don't like my voice. I like my voice.
Recap. Carrington does not like.
I hate my voice. 2. Marissa's laugh is so annoying.
Mhm.
Those are recaps. 3.
The end.
The big 4.
Oh yeah.
God hates you.
No, we're not.
We're not there.
Someone's gonna take that out of context. I'm gonna clip it on. God hates you.
God hates
and
you.
then our little ending where it's like the good
Bye.
Yeah. And it's like a cute little song.
The beginning where it's like, this is gonna be a short, quick episode. God hates you. Bye.
Something crazy, so sort of silly.
Us while we're dancing.
Yeah.
As it fades.
Okay.
So stupid.
Yeah. Well, low key.
Those big 4 were hard to digest.
Yes.
I know we have other stuff.
No, this is great. Actually, we could just move into the big 4. I feel like that conversation kind of covered a lot of it. Essentially, yes, we are a queer affirming podcast. We stand on the idea that God does love the gays and that he accepts them and that he blesses their relationship and their love for one another. But we also go into other perspectives because we think we stand on the belief that God speaks to everyone differently and that God has chosen a different path for everyone. And that's not for us to decide here on this earth. Our goal is to prove to queer people that God does love them and take away the fear that comes with religion so that they can have a relationship with Jesus, and to also create peace among the body of Christ by providing insights, perspectives, and examples on how the issue of homosexuality and other LGBTQIA plus create peace among the body of Christ.
Yeah.
Through different perspectives.
I like that point. I feel like that's another big thing that we need to disclose is like we're also here to just kind of give, like I said, people that are wanting to learn more, like you're probably straight and wanting to just be like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this is a good resource to be like, this is why we think like this.
Yes.
And we're not telling you to stop thinking how you're thinking. It's just, this is our lived experience, and it's the lived experience of probably quite a bit of queer people that have religious backgrounds or are getting into religion.
Yes.
And especially God. So I like that point. I'm glad we brought that back up because it's true.
Yes. And, I think that, given the review that we had, maybe we don't seem as both sides of the coin as we like to say that we are.
Yeah.
But I will say, I have a point in here that we will really start getting into the other side of the coin, especially with these next couple topics where our next segment is going to be not the big four, which we'll get into in a second here, but essentially is like verses that directly deal with like the word homosexuality or that are just straight up talking about being gay.
Yeah.
These are going to be more of those like, okay, subjective, what does this mean? How do you interpret this kind of passages, those types of passages. And so it is going to be, we're going to be evaluating both sides. So for those of you who maybe have more of a sensitivity to that, just heads up, be ready.
Yeah.
But again, we'll do it in a nice way.
Yeah.
Or we'll try.
We always try to do things in a nice way here. I think that's a big part of it.
And that's why we're so silly.
Yeah,
Because we try to make it easy.
I think that's a big part of Christianity, in my opinion. Trying to do things genuinely and in a place of kindness and love is huge to me.
And I want to say, on that review, I've been referencing this review a lot. It actually was so kind. It was very, it was hard for me to hear because I just believe in something so much.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about speaking on this point, and sharing God's love in this way. And this review was like totally opposite of that.
Yeah.
But it was so nice.
It was not malice.
Yes, it was like tell. Yeah, and it was just, these people were so kind. And you could just tell by the way that they wrote, had so much love for me.
Yeah.
So us in general in the pod.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so it wasn't, yeah.
They listened, and that's a huge thing of like listening and then reflecting and writing the review.
And they have some good responses. I was like, dang.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I was like, all right. Goodness. Yeah, you're right, Valid, my bad.
I take it back.
Yeah, you're right. I'm like, guys,
take his hat off.
I get a boyfriend all of a sudden.
I'm actually engaged.
I know. I'm like, guys, I'm pregnant. My next podcast. We haven't been moving our worm around.
Oh, for a second, I thought that the fishing line was gone.
Recap, we have a worm.
We've always had this worm.
We have.
Oh, goodness.
We just haven't really been taking care of her. Is it a
what are their pronouns?
Yeah, it's they, them, I think. Oh, my I get they, them vibes.
Worms are they, them always. Do worms have gender? Well, do worms have sex? Not,
Do they?
Do they have a sex?
Do worms have sex?
Yeah, they reproduce sexually, but do they? So then they have to. What is going on?
Plants low-key have sex.
They do.
But they can switch genders sometimes.
Yeah, some like corn is.
Isn't that crazy? We actually have they them plants, intersex plants. I should say.
Corn is intersex.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Anyway,
they said, "Let me go ahead and reproduce myself. I don't need none of you. Let me real quick. Do worms?" Yes, worms have sex. And some worms have both male and female reproductive organs.
Wow.
Earthworms are simultaneously hermaphrodites. Old term. Yeah, they can self-fertilize.
Is that connected to hermaphrodite?
Hermaphrodite?
Is that a name?
You're thinking of Aphrodite and Hermes together. Hermaphrodite? The goddess of non-binary intersex people is really hot. She's just like really hot. They're really hot. Get up! What are you doing? Get up!
Aphrodite? She's part of the Church of Corinth.
Yeah, she's the goddess of love, dude. Dude, she's the goddess of love.
There's a lot of crazy things. Anyway, speaking of that, this is actually crazy.
Speaking of hermaphrodites. Gosh.
Okay, let's review the big four.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So, again, going into this is what we had talked about already. Maybe this is going to bring some clarity for those of you who didn't understand the past couple episodes. If you guys want more in depth on the history, then
the full video.
Yes. And this is just kind of going to be like the conclusion overview. So the big four, what the heck is it? Like, great. Like, you've been here.
I'm one of the people that didn't understand it.
Okay, cool.
I wrote in anonymously and said, "Can you just like read?"
You were the review. Marissa, this doesn't make any sense.
Marissa, your resources are trash.
I'm like, oh.
And I did it maliciously. After saying it so kindly, like you thought it was kind. I was doing it to make your feelings hurt.
Okay. Thank you. I used it. It helped me do better. The big four. What the heck is it? So, big four is the 4 books in the Bible that have verses that directly talk about gay actions or homosexuality, that use the term either homosexuality or in some sort of reference the actual act of like having homosexual sex. Mm-hmm. Should we read them? And yes. Okay, hold on. Let's read them first before I get too crazy. Okay. We're going to read through this really quick, so bear with me. Leviticus chapter. So the big 4 books are going to be Leviticus, Romans, 1 Corinthians, and 1 Timothy. Here's the verses from each in Leviticus chapter 18. Hang in there, although also trigger warning. Okay, Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are both to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. And then Romans chapter 1, verses 26 to 27. Because of this, God gave them over to their shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. Or do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who have sex with men, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. And that is what some of you were, but you were washed. You were sanctified. You were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. And then 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 8 through 11. We know that the law is good if one uses it properly. We also know that the law is made not for the righteous, but for the lawbreakers and rebels, the ungodly and sinful, the unholy and irreligious, for those who kill their fathers or mothers, for murderers, for the sexually immoral, for those practicing homosexuality, for slave traders and liars and perjurers, and for whatever else is contrary to the sound doctrine that conforms to the gospel concerning the glory of the blessed God, which he entrusted to me.
Dang.
And
scene. That's crazy.
That's the part.
That's bye. No, but yeah, some of those being together.
Yeah.
Under the same, it's totally like our society where we are now. I'm like, whoa, that's the same. But I mean, a sin is a sin.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just rough to hear it all together out loud like that.
Yes, and even though maybe for those of you who have been listening, and who have like accepted the context that we've provided in the historical like background of everything, mm-hmm. Even us hearing about it now, it sucks. And as much as you're like my faith, I'm super secure with God. I'm super like, we're good. I'm gay and he loves me. Cool. But even when reading those Bible verses, it still will like hurt. Yeah. And so I don't want anyone to feel discouraged when they hear these things, or if you feel like you've gotten to a place where you're great with God and then these things maybe set you back. It doesn't mean that you're not still right with God. Yeah. There are a lot of different influences affecting you. Oh, did you hear that?
I did. I didn't know if that was why you paused, but I did hear that, yes.
We got a marching band.
We got thieves breaking in. Yeah. But someone needs to call the police. There's an armed robbery happening.
They're like, didn't you call earlier?
Let's call back. Did you see what I did? I'm like, I called back.
It's that girl. I'm like, it's the girl. The dispatch girl. I'm like, hey girl, did you miss me?
She's like, I'm at your house.
Oh my gosh.
Breaking in and oh, that's you. Never mind.
I'm like, why are you still on the clock?
Your HR is like, you're stealing company time.
Yeah. What?
Clock out.
Yeah, girl, let me fight for your rights right now. Tell me the tea and I'll fight for your rights.
I'll fight for your rights.
Okay. So that's the big 4. So again, if you guys were listening through it, which thank you for listening to me read. Yeah.
Read aloud.
Those, they directly deal with like some sort of description of being gay or doing craziness, or
yeah,
you're gay.
Yep, you're gay. I have a quick question.
Yes,
there was I think it was in the 1 Timothy. It's back to back, sexual immorality or dealing with sexual homosexual tendencies or something like that. Back to back. What could be like sexually, I guess, like our rape. I was gonna say like sexually immoral.
Yes.
Meaning, which we've already talked about. It's just been a while.
Yes, and No, it's a good this is a recap.
That's our copyright guest.
Thank you, Karen.
I just genuinely didn't know.
No, it's okay because it is confusing, and
there's a lot.
That's actually a point that I wanted to cover here too. So, sexually immoral. In fact, the big four, actually, when I was researching and when we were compiling, or when I was compiling these episodes and the content for it, the main idea was taking and pulling these books that had the phrase sexually immoral in it. And so to hear homosexuality and sexually immoral separate, it's like, oh, wait, why?
So what is it?
Yes. So there are two different words to describe what is sexually immoral and what is a homosexual within the Bible. I haven't done a ton of research on that, and I'll explain why in a second. But you're right. There are different terms of going about sex that could be wrong, that are other than just what was that type of homosexuality being described in those passages. So you're right. Like we learned about in Leviticus, there wasn't just unconsensual bad things. But there was also, like, I don't know if you remember, but like uncles having sexual relations with or like even vice versa, a mother-in-law having stuff with their grandson or whatever. I don't know.
Son-in-law.
Yeah. Whoops. I'm like, I don't know.
Not blood related, but like marriage related. Even that.
Yes. Or there was even like.
Hold on that point exactly. There is a relationship in the Bible where it's a sister-in-law and the brother, right?
And we'll talk about that.
Sorry, I'm just getting ahead of myself.
No, there is crazy the kinds of sexual relations that actually happen within the Bible that a lot of people ignore, or the types of like marriages happening in the Bible.
Disregarded.
Yeah, and so we can cover topics, everything from like, you're right, incest to polygamy. That's also a thing. And yeah, we'll get into that, and it really just comes down to what God is calling you to do, because that is like the main factor in all of those passages. It really comes down to like, what did God ask you to do? Also, I realized that my Venn diagram, I was going to draw you guys a Venn diagram in light of Kamala. I love Venn diagrams.
The three were inner circles intersecting. It's just something about that. You understand, right? I liked that video when she was like in 2021 when she said it, or whenever she said
that was in 2021.
It was a long time ago. It was, well, because I remember seeing K-pop memes about it, and I'm really like, that's crazy that Kamala Harris has made it to my K-pop meme account.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what an odd pairing.
Yeah, it was odd eye circle. Something about those three circles when they intersect. I was like, that's too specific. Do you know something, Kamala?
You orbits.
We're dead, man. I don't know if there's many people out there.
Luna.
I follow a couple of them. They have good Instagrams. Like, Heejin has a good Instagram.
Oh, Heejin!
Heejin has a good Instagram.
Olivia?
I think I unfollowed her. She's pretty dead.
You unfollowed Olivia Hay? Even I know her.
You know her because that's all I talked about for 2 years. Oh my god, I actually really love that part of my life. I don't look back on it in shame. I'm like, that's actually so fucking funny of me.
It was fun for me to be involved in it.
It was fun. It was a good time.
You know,
be like, my silly thing that I do.
I
like K-pop.
Had somebody ask me just the other day who I was in college. And I was like, I was boring, but really we weren't. It just was weird.
It wasn't boring. It was like we were always the loudest, the loudest room at night because we were up doing the weirdest shit. But it was fun.
Yeah, it was. We would have like BLACKPINK nights and stuff like that.
I would sit and be like, Marissa, you have to watch this whole discography of this entire band right now.
One time I gave Carrington a Lady Gaga night.
We did have Lady Gaga night. It was fun.
Yeah,
so I like K-pop.
I actually feel like they've gotten more housey and like
I agree
lately, and I love it.
I'm such a listener instead of like I need to see what these girls are up to. I need to see what these boys are doing. Okay. I'm kind of just like I listen, but I'm not like I don't like look at their Instagram and like see what they're doing. Except for when some gay stuff happens and it pops up on my timeline, I'm like, oh my god, they're making out on stage. Why?
I've always been a listener.
Yeah.
Not always, but like.
But I put you on. But like
You
you've become your own
Yes,
stan
I
in
did.
a certain way, which is cool.
I'm a BLACKPINK stan, guys, and if there is one,
Yeah.
really, I'm gonna obsess over it. It's La Lisa. La Lisa,
So,
if you're
Lisa, if you are out there listening to us,
I'm still calling you La Lisa. I'm so dedicated.
La Lisa,
Yeah, and you're just Lisa. I've seen that. I see that transition in you. Go ahead. I support it. But also I've been there since the beginning. Kind of.
Nah, well, neither have I.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, I was a child.
I just didn't know. I didn't know any better.
We didn't know. I'm a Rose stan. I follow her and I watch her little interviews that she does, and I love it.
Okay,
anyway, sorry for that tangent.
Maybe K-pop.
We had to reset the vibe real quick.
Okay. Getting back into it after reading the Big Four.
The Big Four, Jenny, Lisa. The Big Four. That was perfect. Wait, let's assign them each a book.
Oh,
assign each of the girls a book.
La Lisa's Leviticus.
We know. This is for such a niche group of people. Bible thumpers and K-pop. Yeah, religious blinks out there. No, Leviticus is Lisa all the way.
No, for real. Okay,
that's
hold on.
Crazy.
I don't even feel like Rosé's Romans. It's not even the R's.
I was gonna say no. She gives like Timothy. Rosé gives Timothy. First Timothy.
Okay, wait, and then
Jesus might be Romans.
Okay, yeah.
What were you thinking?
No, I think you're right because unproblematic, low key, they were like just kind of fighting, but not like as bad as Corinth.
It's really not.
And then Jenny was out here doing.
She's out here doing crazy, and I'm here for it.
Yep,
her new song.
that sounds like Corinth.
That might be Corinth. Hey, but she's like one of the baddest bitches though. That's the thing. It's like you can't. Hey, if BLACKPINK is listening, this isn't like a negative correlation. It's truly just like Thursdays are green type of vibe. You know, like synesthesia. Like this is how you relate to this book of the Bible, in my opinion.
Thursdays are green.
There's got to be some truth.
Put in the comments what you guys think. Each BLACKPINK. How each BLACKPINK member correlates with each book in the Bible that references homosexuality.
We are 23 and 24 years old, and we are talking about this for anyone to see. It's like real for people, and we're out here like Jenny's Corinth. I love it though. I feel like someone out there's got to relate.
Yep, someone needed this.
There's one person.
2020 you would have eaten this up.
2020 me would have been like, oh, I love this.
Look at this project.
I was not religious in 2020, but I would have eaten this up. I would have been like, let me give it a shot. Let me give it a shot.
See?
It's out there for someone.
I would have not. I would have been like, that's disrespectful.
I know. See, that's our growth journey, though. That's how we're growing and we're evolving. We would have reacted very differently 4 years ago.
Evolution.
And I think we got to give that grace to everybody. I think, I just wanted to take that so deep for some reason.
Go ahead.
I would say, like, my parents, I'm always like, there's no way that you, like, grew that much in this short amount of time since, you know, like, coming out to you. But now I'm like, if I could grow, like the amount of change that I've had in the last 2 years of my life is crazy. So I'm like, I bet it's actually very doable that they change their opinion quite drastically on things. So, hey, I don't know how that relates to K-pop and God, but it does.
Here we are.
I can see it. I can see it meeting. Whatever. Whatever.
Okay. Big Four. Okay, also, going back, we talked about this just 2 seconds ago. Why haven't we talked about the translation of the word homosexual or homosexuality within the Bible? And I'll tell you why. And this is because of me. Ris. That's who I am.
Clarify who's speaking.
So that's because of me. I actually never really looked into the translation. And this actually was something that I just kind of, I don't want to say disregarded from the get-go, because I actually do look at the translation of words that I dive back into. I used to reference like the Blue Letter Bible a lot, which is like a reference for, you can see how many times a certain word is used within the Bible and where it's used and the actual like
That's cool.
Hebrew meaning.
Yeah.
I actually moved away from it because apparently that resource is conservative, like biasly. So I wanted to get out of that. Anyway, there's a couple different resources though that you can use literally online, just to look that kind of stuff up. And it's actually so cool. So it's not like I don't do that. I remember early on that argument of, well, it was translated to pornea or whatever it is, and and this is what the Bible's actually saying because this word's translated. And for me, honestly, that argument of what is a proper translation of this one word has been used so much and has been reviewed so much. And honestly, it hasn't changed one thing. And in my opinion, I'm actually like, well, who knows if I guess you do know if that translation's right. But I don't know. There's just a sense of it's already been looked at and it hasn't changed anything. There's a point when it is like, well, that word could encapsulate homosexual actions as well. And it just like, it wasn't something, I don't know. It also made me feel somewhat convicted, being like, am I really going so tit for tat with the word of God? Because I do believe that the Bible is truth. Am I going so tit for tat with the Bible and God's word that I'm willing to look up this one translation of the word? It made me feel weird. Like, I was like, it's not like if I did that in an argument, like, well, you used I don't know
instead of whenever.
Yeah. So you were being mean.
Yeah.
It just is like,
yeah, no, I understand.
Bro. So it's like, yeah. I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling. And again, it didn't really help anything, regardless of how many people have already looked into that.
Yeah.
But I do think is absolute. And what mattered to me was God's theopractice, or what is essentially what God does, or his actions. And God's actions have always been constant when evaluating and understanding reasoning, and just the context in general. That is consistent, and that is more telling than what is this translation of a word that, I don't know, you never even really know, to be honest, if that's exactly what the Hebrew definition was or the Greek definition was to mean. And so that's why I never really got into it. And I just, if you are passionate about that translation, no hate on it, like, I get it. To me, there's just a different way of going about diving in on one word to try to prove a point, because I think the Bible in whole in itself does a good enough job of showing God's love for all people. So that's why we haven't gone into it.
That's a good reason.
Thank you.
I like the tit for tat. It's like, am I willing to go this hard to find one thing that like confirms or denies my belief?
Yeah.
Is my belief strong enough to withstand not having that?
Yeah.
That's kind of a good reason.
Thank you. So getting into the big four, we're actually gonna get into it. Big four, why are they important, and why did we spend so many episodes going into it? Well, because we wanted to show something. And also, again, I didn't really do a good job explaining the first time, possibly. And I'm gonna say it, for First Timothy, did not do a good job. Oh. I think we got, if you guys were listening to that one, towards the end, we were like, we explained the history and the context and the background of everything. And then at the end, we were like, why does it even matter? God loves everyone. And I didn't explain or give like a solid explanation as to like why that book was like, why we kind of like, okay, this is why it's okay. And I was listening and I was like, oh. I was like,
this podcast sucks.
Yeah, I was like, we really didn't finish it. And that was like a 2-parter, I think.
Oh, shoot. I can't remember. I feel like that was years ago.
It was the sorcerer one. where we were talking about
Oh.
how they did the magic and Paul went and
yeah.
we were really just like, it doesn't
We
even
were
matter.
goofing.
God, we were.
We were goofing.
It
That's
was
why
a lot of history
yeah.
with that one though, and it
There
was talking
was,
about like spiritual stuff,
Yeah.
which was scary. So
That's why we say go read a book.
no, for real, because I listened to it and I was like,
I sound like an idiot.
I was so shocked.
No, it's okay. It's okay because also I feel like at the time I remember being like, I'm learning so much. So even if we didn't discuss in depth like the reasoning and like theories and like ideas behind it, having that context for me as someone that is not on the same level of you spiritually or like theologically, like academically, it was really cool to be like, oh, okay, like this is what the book is saying and like this is the context and this is who Paul is. And I was like, that having that was big. So to me, that's why I didn't feel the same way of like it was bad. I remember it being bad. So
thank you. I needed that.
Yeah.
I felt so bad.
You shouldn't. I know I'm making fun of you, but also like I don't remember it being bad. I remember being like, I remember going home and telling my mom, I'm like, I remember telling my mom like, I know about like Marissa's like teaching me.
Oh,
I'm like
thank
learning
you.
stories from the Bible that I should have learned in Sunday school, but I dropped out. I dropped out of Sunday school.
And you know what's funny though? First Timothy, I think it was the second part of that episode because it was a two-parter. On YouTube, it was the video with the most views.
Slay.
Isn't that cute? And again, we didn't even give a reason. We were just talking.
But maybe that's why it got so many views because we were just like hanging out. Like God loves you, yes. Because that's at the end of the day, what is this for? God loves us. There's no other reason.
That's how we got caught up on.
We talk ourselves in circles like no one's business.
Do. Okay. Let's get out of that. So we're gonna explain. We're just gonna solidify why we talked about all these big four and why we, in the way we see it, solidify that God still loves the gays even through these direct vernacular, vernacular pertaining to homosexuality. And speaking of TikTok audios, they're all interlinked. Do you know that one audio?
I might not.
It's from sad TikTok.
How are you on sad TikTok and I'm not?
Where it's like, the kids jump into the hula hoop, interlinked, and the kids heart to heart, and I miss you, interlinked, interlinked.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Dang,
maybe I'm just like not as depressed as you are.
Anyway, okay, interlinked. Why? Well, first of all, why is it even important that we're talking about, or what does it mean to be interlinked? They are all similar. They all share a common similarity. See,
okay, stop.
And then they all are similar in the sense of what they're dealing with. And so why is it important that we're talking about what's similar between them? And if it's not self-explanatory, actually, no, I'll go into that after because I feel like it'll prove me. Okay, they're all interlinked. Why?
You don't know?
I do!
They're interlinked from the fact that they talk about homosexuality.
Yes.
And like what God's telling you not to do.
Yes.
He doesn't often tell you what not to do, right? Or does he?
No, yes, he does.
Okay.
But
cut that.
Okay, but like, yes, they all deal with homosexuality, but like, what type of homosexuality?
Is this like a quiz?
Yes. I want to see it, actually.
It's kind of like
I would love to see it.
Well, from those big four, it was mostly like power dynamic, like I don't want to say like age gap, but it was mostly like older men in power, and they would have sex with like young looking boys as mostly just because they could, right? I feel like it was kind of just like, yeah, I will because I can.
There was another reason.
Oh.
One more. Aphrodite.
Oh, because it was part of like it was part of pagan worshiping. They worshipped like old gods and not the monotheistic religion of Christianity.
Yes,
actually, a lot of words to mean nothing.
No, that was good. That actually
took me a second.
No, that actually makes me feel so happy because it's very validating in the sense that it actually is getting across.
Yeah, I listen.
No, not in just
No.
in general, but like not just
No.
in general. Like that means, you know, because you talk about like I've studied this so long
Yeah.
that like
It makes sense to you.
yes, but then to hear you saying that like it's making sense, like
Yeah.
that actually was a huge relief.
Really?
You don't even know
Dude,
like
no.
how much lighter I feel.
Dude, we need to just have more conversations like normally about it because yeah. I am interested in learning. I'm doing this podcast with you for a reason, and I'm
thanks.
taking it to heart. It's like my Bible study.
No,
truly.
good. My gosh, I just wanted to make sure that we understood what was
That I
going
have
on.
been listening.
Yeah, well, then it's also
Yeah.
like you're like
I'm learning.
yeah. What is a viewer also hearing too?
That's
you know?
true. Yeah.
So like,
because I'm that kind of viewer perspective at
Yeah.
some points. Yeah.
oh, okay, great.
Well, it's
Yes.
about power dynamics and it's about paganism.
Yes, and essentially you mentioned it too, where you were like, "Well, I can do this. I'm going to,"
Mm-hmm.
which can kind of be related back to hedonism.
Hedonism sounds more correct.
Hedonism, where essentially it is for lust because you can, because you want to.
Yeah.
I like to relate it back to power dynamic because I feel like lust in general. So we have these three, right? The lust, power, pagan worship. Lust in general is something that we will always struggle with as like a human being, just because it's part of our biological nature. And that's nothing new to us, and that's nothing specific only to these people dealing with
like
this
queer
types
people, or like it's
yes.
not like one person.
Yes,
one
it's
group.
not only pertaining to the homosexuality referenced in these big four. So I just
get rid of it.
Yes. So now there's only two.
Right
I like did that. There's two. Pick number 2, my lord. Do you know what I'm on Shrek?
No, I don't. I haven't seen Shrek in a minute. Shrek 1 or Shrek 2?
1.
I haven't seen Shrek 1.
Mind. That didn't land.
Sorry.
Anyway,
oh, your one joke didn't land. I don't know why. I got really mean about it. I don't know why I got so mean.
That also is like a compliment. Like, oh, your one joke didn't land. You're funny the rest of the time.
Right.
Okay,
cool. Was kind of like
okay. So we have that, and so right now we're down to power dynamic, and we are down to pagan worship. As for power dynamic, and because I can and because I want to, kind of deal.
Yeah.
I also don't feel like that is necessarily a thing that is only pertaining to the homosexuality that we hear within these big four.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is a reality of our world today. And I'm going to be really honest, like we see that in sex trafficking, we see that in unconsensual situations. And so I say those things not to be scary, but just because I think sometimes it is easy to think like, oh no, people have so much more control.
Yeah.
Or like, no, consent is such like a bigger thing today.
Yeah, like that was I don't know, 2,000 years ago. It can't possibly be true now.
Yes, it's still a huge issue.
Yeah.
So I like to take that one off. So what it really comes down to in terms of why I like to dial into these and why I group these together and what makes sense to me is paganism.
Let's talk about it.
So reviewing. When we went into the history of each one, sure, not every one of them had the main situation being paganism. Romans is actually a reference, which I didn't do a good job on this one either. When I was explaining Romans. Romans is actually a reference to Genesis, which we will get into. Because remember, I kept saying, we'll get into that in Leviticus. We'll explain what they were doing, and Romans is connected to Leviticus. It wasn't. It's connected to Genesis.
That's okay. It happens.
Leviticus and Genesis are related in that sense, but also Romans is a direct reference to what the heck was happening in Genesis, where the Israelites go crazy after God rescues them from Egypt, and they start worshiping the cow, the golden cow, which we'll have to get into later. Well, we have kind of referenced Genesis. The thing about it, okay, so Romans within the big four references what the heck the Israelites were doing in Genesis after they got rescued from Egypt. They made a golden calf after God had rescued them and splitted the Red Sea and yada yada. And they started participating in what is referenced in verse 7 of Genesis 32, I believe, is they refer to it as revelry, which is, we learn later on in Romans, actually puts the wording to it, women exchanging unnatural relations for women and men laying with men or whatever. So when I was first doing my research, I didn't include Genesis in the big four because it didn't say that direct, like, they were doing this. But Romans is what later on reveals that is the revelry. The word revelry was revealing of homosexual relations.
Can you define revelry real quick?
Revelry, I don't know.
Is it like,
I just kind of find it as like,
I feel like I have an idea, but I don't know if I'm wrong.
I don't know. Let's look at the definition.
I don't want to bring up my phone, but because I already did it for the worms. I needed to know if worms could have sex.
Lively and noisy festivities.
That's what I was thinking.
Especially when these involve drinking and large amounts of alcohol.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that was
makes
kind of
sense.
the same track that I was on, like a celebration, but like an intense one.
Yes.
Sometimes bad.
That's why Genesis didn't get involved. Why did I say that? Because I didn't do a very good job of explaining it in the first place when I was doing the Romans episode.
We're learning. You have to give yourself grace.
You're right. Well, also, reverting back to paganism, the Church of Romans, when we reviewed Romans, the Church of Romans is dealing with a society and an environment where paganism is still prevalent. In Genesis, which we will go into, is why were the Israelites all of a sudden participating in homosexual relations after God rescued them, in light of this golden calf situation. Not just because they were being lustful, it was actually a reflection of, again, pagan worship, which we'll go into.
It was like part of their worship towards this idol.
Yes, and it was actually a reflection of Egyptian pagan worship as well.
They were slaves to the Egyptians, so of course they were probably going to pick up something from
yes, them. Exactly. And which we learned also
for the Romans. They were sorry, I totally cut you off.
No.
I was assuming you were going to go with like the Roman culture was pagan in the terms of like they worshipped multiple gods, these idols.
Yes.
They would worship directly.
And so when Paul makes the reference, it's not just because, and when we talked about it in that episode where we reviewed Romans. I did too.
I remember a lot of it.
Where we talked about Paul being extreme. He was super extreme. Not only was he using an extreme example, like, yes, when I was listening to that, even I was like, okay, kind of a stretch. But it does make sense that Paul would use that specific extreme example because Romans were still dealing with an environment where pagan worship was prevalent. Because if we remember, not only in Romans, but in the episode where we talked about the Church of Corinth, we learned that there is the Greco-Roman culture where Greek and Roman culture are essentially combined because Rome overcame the Greek
Empire.
Yes.
It was very much like they were right there. And there's a lot of history behind it.
Yes.
That I don't know exactly, but I know that.
Yes. And so it makes sense why Paul would use this specific example where we learn that pagan worship was an influence of why the Israelites could have possibly be indulging in quote unquote revelry, which we also know is part. Okay. In the sense of revelry, we also can connect it and learn from Leviticus, which is also part of our big four, because God reveals in Leviticus that he does not like homosexual relations because it is a reflection of what the Egyptians were doing while they were worshiping their gods.
Oh, so it's just like a callback. He's like, we've seen this before. This is what you guys are doing, and we've seen it. Why haven't you learned from history that it's no good?
Yep.
God says no. Okay.
And even in
that's a great explanation. I understood that immediately.
Thank you. And even in Ephesus, because if we remember as well, so we have in Egypt in Leviticus, if we remember the history of that, in Egypt, Astarte, was
you.
the goddess of fertility that the Egyptians would do pagan sexual worship for. And then Astarte, or whatever her name was, was eventually derived into Aphrodite, or as a reflection of her, or which could be essentially like within this culture, she's known as this.
Yeah,
in
her
this
like
culture.
counterpart of her culture. Yeah.
Yes. So in Greek culture, Aphrodite.
Mhm.
Then we learned a couple miles down the street in Ephesus, Artemis.
Oh, how
No.
could we forget about? I was gonna say
Astarte or Ishtar, Artemis. Yes. Okay. Ephesus was Artemis.
Oh, okay.
Aphrodite was Corinth, and then Ishtar or
Sorry.
was in Egypt, and they're all, like you said, counterparts of one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so even with this and all the big four interlinked, they're literally all the goddesses that they're doing these pagan worship for that are like, there were other gods and goddesses that they would do sexual pagan worship for. If you want to research into that, go ahead.
That's on your own time.
Yeah, but and what we're going to talk about here, these main ones that were the most prevalent, they were all counterparts of one another,
Mm-hmm.
and they all are referencing essentially the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and are all fueling the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and interlinked.
I get it.
I can't explain it
That's
anymore.
why the big four are chosen, because they do have a commonality of paganism underneath, not just homosexuality.
Yes.
You're kind of relating to the act of homosexuality that's referenced in those big four as a correlation to the paganism worship that was also happening.
Yes.
And it wasn't under God's rule. It was kind of like they were doing their own thing.
Yes, it was.
That's why they were getting called out.
Yes, and it wasn't queer love that we see today.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much worshiping other idols, worshiping other gods, which God has directly said, like,
that's like the first commandment.
Yes, don't do that. So why is it important that we talk about that instead of just being like, well, still gay? Well, hold on, because cross-referencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major way to study the Bible. So when we talk about cross-referencing, what that is essentially saying, okay, God says this thing in this part of the Bible, and this thing in this part of the Bible. When two things match, that essentially is how theologians and anybody studying the Bible, I guess, proves what God is saying and what God's truth is. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Jesus, how do we as Christians trust that Jesus is the actual prophet, that is God's son, that was meant to save everyone from their sins? Well, we refer back to the prophecy, when we refer back to what God said about Jesus in the beginning, about Jesus always being there from Genesis 1, and we see that God talks about, or in the way that God is referenced in Hebrew, he's talked about like as many, or as a council, not just as one. Mm-hmm. At least from what I remember. But there is a reference of God being more than one. And it makes sense, because then later on we learn that Jesus was there in the beginning, and then we learn that Jesus and God are together as one, and there's a million times where it says this, and then there's a million times, or not a million, but there's times in the prophecy back in like Isaiah, and we talk about Isaiah's like, Jesus will help the blind to see, be born of a virgin, and then here we have Jesus being born of a virgin and helping the blind to see, and it's like, okay, this guy lines up with this, this guy lines up with this. And so cross-referencing, it is a major way that we have decided and have dictated what God's truth is and what he is saying in these different variations of his word.
Yeah, through different writers of the Bible.
Yes.
Okay.
And so in argument and in light of this pagan worship and what we're explaining here, it is negligent to say that we are going to ignore this idea and this central like idea that paganism is part of this context. It is ignorant to not see that there is an influence of that, and it is ignorant to ignore that and to say, okay, the kind of homosexuality God is referencing here has this direct correlation and is derived from this one thing. Mm-hmm. And so to take in context of something, a type of homosexuality that is totally different, again, arrogant. It doesn't make sense if we truly want to follow the instruction of interpreting God's word.
Yeah, that we have for other parts of the Bible. Okay.
And if
That's
we
pretty,
can,
yeah.
if we can trust that that's how we believe in Jesus, and
Yeah.
we like validate his
yeah.
being, we need to acknowledge that this is a way to validate the type of way that we approach homosexuality and determining if it's good or not
Yeah.
today in the modern day.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. If I went to the past and people were doing homosexual stuff and
you were doing it for like in your brain, you're like, no, I love this person.
Yeah, but
it would still be seen as, hey.
Yeah, like,
I mean,
oh, I'm reflecting because I love Aphrodite apparently.
Yeah.
Like, then I'd be like, okay, different context. But today I can be like, I love God.
Hey, that made a lot of sense.
Thank you.
That was a good way to put it.
And that essentially is what the Big Four boils down to.
Slay.
Isn't that so silly? We have done
kind of silly.
Like more than a couple hours of study on these 4 books of the Bible, but literally it comes down to they are all influenced by pagan worship and directly reflect that or have some sort of connection to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it can only be concluded that homosexuality derived from pagan worship.
It might not only be concluded, but like that's a major player in this situation that we're talking about right now. And yeah, it is interesting to think like, and I always hear, I don't know if it's from one side of Christians, but I hear it a lot where it's like, are we okay with taking like our modern world we're in now and like truly using what was written 2,000 years ago and beyond as a guide for today? Or is it what we should be doing, or should we be actually changing it to fit our modern world?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just something that I see and I think about, and I don't have an answer for it. But I know you brought it up, and I was like, yeah, can we? Or I don't know. So again, I'm not here to answer that. That's a thought that I've been having.
You know what? I actually wrote that down as a point.
Slay, we're connected.
I was going to kind of end it right here.
This is a great place to end it because there is no answer for that.
Well,
do you have an answer for it?
I low-key. Okay,
because remember.
Think? Okay, maybe I'll, Marissa, cut this and put it in a different part. There's something that we do need to review.
What?
Is I think it may seem scary when listening to this pod, especially as someone who maybe sent that review and who takes more of a conservative standpoint on the sense of like, you guys are saying that God is this changing figure that apparently is cool with gays now when he wasn't cool with them in the past. No. In fact, I've talked about it earlier where we stand on the truth of scripture, and I don't like to debate scripture. That's why I didn't go into like translation.
Yeah.
I'm not ever saying that God is changing, because I do believe that he is the same as according to James and Malachi and Hebrews. So no, I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is God reveals himself in different ways and at different times. And just like we see with Jesus, why didn't God, if he's so loving, give us Jesus right from the get-go?
Yeah.
Why is he waiting to like bring us up to heaven when he could have just not have done the flood or like maybe, not kill his son? I'm not saying that God is changing. I just think that he reveals himself at different times for a certain purpose. I also think that it's because of our own decisions, and God gives us the choice of free will. Why did I say that?
I don't know, but as you were saying, it kind of made me think back to the episode that I did, where it's like God reveals certain things at certain times, and it's not for us to know why.
Yes.
It's just kind of like, that is the plan. Hey, that's what's going to happen.
And like, you're right, because on your episode, we also talked about what we can handle in terms of knowledge. And like, even now we're still learning that like, those miracles that maybe people thought were miracles or spirits back in the day were not. Maybe it was just like, hey, that's just mental health, or that's like this
that's
kind
just
of
an eclipse.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to go sacrifice anybody. It's okay. So
those lotuses are just migrating. Chill. Sorry, that one, I don't know.
No, imagine.
I don't know.
Well, maybe
I don't know about lotuses.
You're right. Maybe God did that on purpose, though. He just is like, big population this year.
I hated that sound you just made. Maybe.
Anyway, we're talking about that because it was like, are we supposed to be taking what we believe or what God has taught us in the Bible, and are we just changing it for our culture today, or should we be
following it more of how they did in the old days?
Yes.
In the old days.
Yes. And so I'm not saying that we're changing scripture. I'm not trying to say that we're changing what God says just to fit us in modern day. I just believe that we've grown as a civilization. We've grown in the knowledge that we know about God, and he's revealed himself to us in different ways, that we are supposed to modernize as things change, as God's worlds change. And, we are supposed to, just like we talked about in Carrington's biology episode, we're supposed to learn from nature, and nature changes, and we go through all these like different erosion, and we see Pangea being broken up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, it's not always supposed to stay the same, but we would literally die if we didn't adapt.
Yeah. Change.
And here we are. So, and maybe that is food for thought. We do see deaths today because people can't accept homosexuality within religion, and God doesn't want death, he wants life. So food for thought. If you're maybe someone that's not as affirming, are you cool with that fact of not adapting and letting death come up because of it? But that's actually a topic that we can talk about later.
Next time. Not next time, but later.
Very later. It's actually like my final point.
Actually, never.
I'm giggled out.
Yeah, that giggling session like wiped me.
Okay.
Bye.